You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison for the usual busy show. So England are reportedly considering giving Harry Brook the vice-captaincy of the Test side. We'll hear from Brendon McCullum, and we'll also ask if Ollie Pope is maybe unlucky as the noise around his place at number 3 grows louder. Worcestershire captain Jake Libby joins us, fresh off the back of winning their first white ball trophy in 8 years after beating Hampshire in a thrilling one-day cup final. We'll reflect on England's white ball summer and how they're shaping up ahead of the T20 World Cup next year, and we'll preview a hugely significant final round of the County Championship, with Nottinghamshire on the verge of glory and no less than 5 teams battling to stay in Division 1. So plenty to come over the next hour. This is Following On. Well, Harmy, it's confession time. It's been, I don't know how many weeks since our last discussion about Ollie Pope, but we can catch up now and talk about Harry Brook. Is he set to replace him as vice captain? It's an interesting. I mean, is this the next step in Harry's development to become all formats coach one day? It does seem. It does seem a little bit harsh on Ollie Pope, but before you answer that, let's just hear from Brendon McCullum talking about Harry Brook.
He's been fantastic, honestly, for a young captain to take over the role and to remain so authentic to who he is and keep things so simple is fantastic. He's a great bloke. He's got a great cricketing mind in his head, and he's got great connections throughout the group. And I think he's going to do a wonderful job in the role that he's in. And also, when it comes to Test cricket, we know how talented he is. And again, he's a huge player for us in our next little while.
That's Brendon McCullum talking to Sky Sports Cricket, not holding back in his praise of Harry Brook. But he had the opportunity, didn't he, to say that Ollie Pope would be vice-captain, and he didn't take it.
Yeah, he did, but I think we referenced it last week, what a great interview that was from Nasser Hussain and Ian Ward, and there was a load of great stuff in there. And I think getting caught up possibly in the motion, getting caught up in still defining not the squad, but what potentially could be the 11, and the emergence of Jacob Bethel, I think that would have been a bit foolish if Brendon had said, yeah, Ollie Pope's our man, because all of a sudden then you've got to go into that first Test match at Perth going, well, we've played no cricket, and you've gone from Ollie Pope's being our man to not being in the 11. So I think he was better off saying what he said and the way he said it. I think if Ollie Pope's in the team, I think he stays as vice-captain. I think if Ollie Pope's not in the team, then obviously Harry Brook becomes vice-captain. I wouldn't be quick to go, right, Ollie, you come out of being vice-captain, but you're still bad at 3. I think he's still got a huge. I think Ollie Pope's been a very, very good vice-captain to Ben Stokes. And I actually think Ollie Pope, potentially, if Harry Brook becomes captain, it means Ben Stokes is not playing. If Ben Stokes is not playing, you might find Ollie Pope moving down the order to where he's comfortable batting. And then he still becomes a very, very good vice-captain. So I think there would be the sort of things going around in my head if I was making them decisions, that if he's going to bat at number 3 and he plays in the Ashes, there's no reason to change and have, for the sake of having Harry Brook as vice-captain. We know who's going to captain England when Ben Stokes is finished, and that's Harry Brook. So leave Ollie as vice-captain if he is playing. If he's not playing, well, then the next heir apparent just goes up to vice-captain, and it's a natural progression for Harry. So that's the way I would look at it as if I was making a decision, because when Ben Stokes comes out of the team and the captaincy is not his, then for me, Harry Brook becomes captain. But Ollie Pope, I still think he's one of our best 6 batters. I just don't think he's suited to number 3. And he'd be more suited at number 5 or number 6, where there becomes an opening when if Ben's injured or if he's not playing, or if and when his days are numbered. So that would be my assessment of where the vice captaincy is at the minute. While Ollie Pope's in the team, there's no reason for having not to be vice captain. It doesn't mean you have to make him captain when you lose Ben Stokes. So if Ben Stokes plays in the first Test match, gets injured and misses Brisbane, then Ollie Pope can still be vice captain and Harry Brook can still be captain. They have a management structure. I think he's a very, very good middle manage, good sounding board. And I think he's been very, very good for Ben Stokes. And I think I'd keep the status quo as it is, and leave him as vice captain for the foreseeable future. Doesn't mean he has to be named captain when it's apparent that Ben Stokes is either going to come out of the team or he gets injured.
There was a time when vice captain was a very specific role. It didn't necessarily mean leader in waiting. Often he was a conduit between the players and the captain and the coach. He was often a senior pro who'd be a metaphorical shoulder to cry on. Do you know what I mean? There were players who were very specifically suited to being the vice captain rather than captain in waiting.
Yeah, and I think that seems to be Ollie's. I think that's a good role for Ollie Pope. He's a likeable lad. He's a knowledgeable cricketer. He thinks hard. When it comes to, you watch him on the field, we've been fortunate manners where we're in the commentary box and we're watching, we're seeing what people can't see on TV. And Ben talks to him a hell of a lot. He's a short leg. He's normally in front of the wicket when he's fielding, so he sees the angles. He understands the game. Just be nice if he could get a few more runs and knock his average up to get people off his back, because he's a quality player. He's just probably not suited to be at that number 3. But you're right. I think there are some people who are destined to be captains, who are authoritarians, who command respect. That's Ben Stokes. I think Harry Brook he's going towards that way. I don't think he's there yet, and I don't think he will ever be Ben Stokes. Not many are. But Harry, I think, has got that in him. Where Ollie, I think you're right. There are people who are just suited for that middle management role to just make sure that junior players are comfortable and seeing what's going on and looking after them. And you are a good calming influence and sounding board on what is Ben Stokes as a volatile thinker, because he is. I mean, Ben might not thank me for saying that, but he is. He's an emotional thinker. And I think Harry is as well. And I think Ollie just in between. He's not, and McCullum is as well, to be fair to Brendon. Brendon's he lived life on the edge when he played, and he does when he's coach. And I think a steady hand in the middle. Again, I just wish he scored a little few more runs to get people off his back, because I think he'd be a great vice captain of the England cricket team. Not necessarily captain of the team, but a good vice captain of the England cricket team throughout his days, because he'd be a good sort of calming influence and sounding point for a captain.
Okay, let's talk spinners now for a moment. Regardless of whether Rian Ahmed had played for England before, and he hasn't played a test since Rawalpindi, just the fact that he's scored 500s and is averaging 50 and has taken 23 wickets at 19 for Leicestershire should surely put him in line, for at least, for a serious conversation. But indications are that he will be in the squad as the second spinner. And also, what do you make of the murmurings about Will Jacks being a contender? Presumably it's because he's tall.
Yeah.
They want a tall spinner who gets bounce in Australia.
They want a tall spinner. They just get New Balance or Adidas or somebody just to make sort of Asics to make some higher boots and put some things in their in their shoes to make them a little trampoline on the end of the thing. I mean, the Will Jacks one, let's get that one out of the way first. As a backup cross batter, if Will Jacks was going, I'd be worried that we're trying to cover bases where thinking Stokes is not 100% fit. I might be putting 2 and 2 together and getting 5, because England have to have a plan. Brendon McCullum said on that interview, Sky, that because Wardy asked him, what happens if Ben Stokes is not fit? We have to have a plan. And that plan would be probably Shoaib Bashir out, a spin bowler that can bat. Because Jamie Smith would go at 6. Then you'd have a Will Jacks or a Rian Ahmed, Liam Dawson type package of batter and spin bowler. And then you'd need, that's why I would take Chris Woakes. Because, replacing Ben Stokes, you probably need 2 or 3 different different players to cover, from a runs point of view, and he's over. So I would definitely, I mean, there's no question on Rian. Rian's going for me. In my squad, I've got written down here, I've got Rian Ahmed and Shoaib Bashir as the only 2 spinners going. Cox is the spare batter, stroke wicket keeper. Possibly taking Sibley because he's the only opener, I think. I mean, it's too early for Emilio Gay, it's too early for Ben McKinney. Tom Haynes, too early. I'm going with Dom Sibley. And I'm taking Archer, Wood, Atkinson, Wokes, Carson, Tom as my bowling options from a seam bowling point of view. And I wouldn't even, I wasn't going to take Overton, and I wouldn't have took Dawson. Will Jacks, I can see the positives of taking somebody like Will Jacks, because just in case something happens to Ben Stokes. But if you're looking at Will Jacks just playing because he's tall, I mean, you're basically throwing, you're not giving a great vote of confidence to Shoaib Bashir, who you invested a lot of time and effort in, and that would be a little bit of a panic selection for me. Other than the fact that we might have to have 2 or 3 all-rounders if Ben's not fit. That would be the only reason I would take someone like Will Jacks.
How many's in your squad? We're not sure when the actual Ashes squad is going to be announced, but how many have you got there? And is there an optimum number? I mean, I'm assuming you can take as many as you like, as long as you pay, over a certain number. I mean, I don't know what that number would be, but you've been part of enlarged squads, and you can have too many, can't you?
You can. The way I'd make up the England touring party, and this is just me, I'd take 17 in a main squad. And then you'd have the Lions who are going simultaneously side by side. I'd have your five identified going reserves. So your spare opening batter, your possible spare wicket keeper, 2 spare seamers, and your spare spin bowler. So them 5 would go with the Lions. I'd pick 5 youngsters for experience to go with the Lions, and 10 players who I've identified who have had good year and who have been through the Lions program. The likes of Tom Haynes, the likes of Emilio Gay, the likes of Ben McKinney. They would be in that 10. Your 5 that you would go as players who I'd look as backup players. The likes of Dom Sibley, possibly as an opener. Matt Potts as a seam bowling option. I don't think Liam Dawson would go, but if Liam Dawson wouldn't go, I'd go with Will Jacks as your spare spin bowler, or somebody of like that. You've got 4 or 5 youngsters that on my list here that are a must to go for experience with the Lions, and you'd be like Rocky Flintoff, who's had a bit of experience. Farhan Ahmed's had a bit of experience. Young Rue has had a bit of experience. Thomas Rue, I'm talking about for the Lions, and his brother would go as a spare wicketkeeper batter for that 5 that would be as replacements for the full squad. Archie Vaughan, in my opinion, should be going with the Lions. Alex Green, I would like to have a look at in Australian conditions. The big boy the 18-year-old from Leicestershire. Them 5 for me would be a free hit, travelling as the experiment of having, seeing what the Ashes is like, seeing what a touring life's like, and that would be with the Lions squad. And then you have the makeup of your main squad, the likes of your Josh Hulls, your Eddie Jacks, your Mitch Stanleys, your Sonny Bakers, Dylan Pennington, Matt Fisher. I'd be wanting to have him on the Lions trip. And then your batters, you got likes of Tom Haynes, Ben McKinney, Emilio Gay, Tom Banton, James Rue, Max Holden. These are the names I've got on the Lions list, who I don't think are anywhere near ready for international cricket. But there might be in 2 years' time when Australia come to England, and I'd like them to sample and see what's going on. I think the main 17-man England squad picks itself. That's providing that Chris Wokes for me is fit, because he's got to go.
Tell you what, Harmy, by the time you've selected your Ashes squad and your Lions squad, you're going to be unlucky if you're an England cricketer not going to Australia.
Absolutely. Yeah. But they've got to take a lot. They're playing against each other. I think I would take a lot of cricketers into, just for experience, into Australia, because the Lions can play a lot of cricket. They're going to play a game at Lilac. Apparently, they're playing a game at Lilac Hill. I spoke to Neil Killeen the other day. Game at Lilac Hill. They've got a game up at Brisbane. They've got a game against England. They've got cricket over there, but the experience of Andrew Flintoff, Graham Swan, Neil Killeen, for me, while what else are they going to be doing in England? It's freezing cold. They're going to watch it in the middle of the night. Get them over there. Have the experience. You've just sold the 100. You've got a few quid in your pocket. Make sure there's 4 or 5 young cricketers who you think in 2 or 3 Ashes' time are going to be the mainstay of the team. Keezy knows this because Keezy went through that system like he did. He went on 2-year tours like I went on. We went on the National Academy. And that group that went on the National Academy were the group that went through 2003, 4, 5 when England was strong. Build it like that. Fletcher had the plan like that with the selectors. And I think, for me, that's the way I would go for the next generation of the England cricket team to come through.
One of the worst jobs on tour historically has been reserve wicketkeeper. So Baz did actually confirm in that interview that you mentioned that Pope would be the reserve wicketkeeper. But it's not as if they, you need to spend a month on a boat getting to Australia. If they decide to change course, and they need a spare wicketkeeper if Jamie Smith is injured, they can just fly one over. But so Pope will start as the reserve keeper. Let's review the white ball summer then, Harmy. Rounded off with a comprehensive 2-0 series win in Ireland, who were very short of cricket in the Irish summer. But I thought they acquitted themselves really well. They're a very good team, so there'll be no condescension from me. They particularly the first game, they bowled a bit better there. They could have really pushed England. Phil Salt, Jordan Cox, and Tom Banton all made their mark with the bat. Sonny Baker was so full of beans, wasn't he, after his nightmare ODI debut? Said he wanted to put it right, but none for 52 from his 4 overs. So, shame. I mean, he's clearly very talented, but it didn't go according to plan. I mean, it just seemed to me that, I don't know, length was the problem, Harmy, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's bowling in the slot.
Yeah, unfortunately for Sonny, he just didn't quite get his length right in both games. Both games he's had a bit of a struggle in, and. Look, this kid is talented, and he's very, very good, and he's got huge amount of ceiling level and potential. The height he's at, trajectory he comes at, and the pace he comes in international cricket now, it's quite nice to face, and I mean that with all due respect to the young man. I think you look at, he's not quite as quick as Mark Wood. But even Mark Wood in T20 cricket and in one-day cricket, on a flat one, at that trajectory, he gets belted as well. So I think you're right. I think the big thing that he's got to find is the length he needs to bowl to sort of be stock length to move the ball either way. Because at the end of the day, when he's bowling, the actual white ball man is moving. There's some movement there because he's bowling at the start of an innings, and he's just got to find the right length with the right movement to get off to a good start. And that, for me, is key in one-day cricket. If you can get on top of the batter, then all of a sudden you can then start mixing with your length, and you can start feeling confident, and the feel factor in the over is good, and it's on your side. If you start going out of the park for the first 2 or 3 balls, and all of a sudden trying to play catch up, damage limitations, when you haven't got the experience, and we're talking about a young man, unfortunately, who's hardly played any first-class cricket, who's played hardly any domestic cricket, and we are now throwing him into the deep end. So he's going to learn the hard way, and I've got no problem with that. I really haven't. I don't mind him. I think seeing figures of the day, he's bowled 12 overs in national cricket on for 120. Who cares? I'm not bothered. As long as he's learning and he's getting better. So the next time he goes out and he knows his lengths have got to be better. And I look at him, and my old mate, a sparring partner on talkSPORT, Darren Gough, and you look at Sonny Baker and you go, well, he's a similar height to Goughy. He's got similar speeds to what Darren had, And you look at Darren played in a different era. And before anybody says, yes, I'm talking about a different era. But Darren's ability to move that new ball was why he was so good in the first power play. And in the middle, he had a great slow ball, unbelievable change of pace. And he had a brilliant Yorker. He finished games off death-wise better than anybody else for me in the world. That's why Darren Gough is one of the leading wicket takers in one-day cricket. And I think what Sonny's got to find out, but unfortunately hasn't played the volume of games in the high level of cricket. And he's going to find the hard way. He's got to find a way of moving that new ball on a good length, or his length at the start, to stay relevant, and then finding a way, because he's got the change-up, he's got everything. But unfortunately, he's going to have to learn the hard way inside there. And you look at Goughy was similar height to Sonny. Very similar trajectory. I'll be interested to see whether it is when it comes down. And you look at the amazing ability Darren had, and it was in a different time, whether not, first 10 overs, you weren't as, it wasn't as, powerful in the power play. But I think you look at someone like Sonny Baker, he has got all the attributes, but if he keeps getting belted on flat pitches, you're going to dent his confidence. So how you get the volume of cricket in that he needs to get some confidence up, to learn how to take new ball wickets in the power play at the start of the game, and then how you finish your innings off. And I think they're two key components when it comes to creating not the perfect white ball bowler, but he bowled brilliantly in a couple of games in the 100. But more often than not, he's had a little bit of a struggle on flat wickets because of the pace he's at and the height he comes from.
I just want to reiterate the point you make about the importance of different eras. In some ways, you can look at Test cricket, and apart from scoring rates, you look at a scorecard from 50, 60, 80, 100 years ago, and they kind of look like the same game as Test cricket scorecards now, yeah. But not 50 over cricket. I mean, Joel Garner had an economy rate of 2.2 in 50 over cricket, and as brilliant as he was, that wouldn't be happening in 50 over cricket today. No. There were no limitations on fields, no fielding circles, that kind of thing. So yeah, I mean, he is in the highest scoring. He's starting his fast bowling career in the highest scoring era of all time, and it's only going to get higher. Anyway, let's hear again from more from Baz. He's taken charge. Obviously, it's his first summer as the white ball head coach alongside the Test side. And he was also telling Nasser Hussain and Ian Ward at Sky Cricket what's impressed him most during his first few months in charge.
There's lots that's pleased me. I think if you look through that batting lineup, I think it looks incredibly powerful. It's got a little bit slightly different look to it as well now with the emergence of Jacob Bethel. Obviously, him being left-handed gives us a bit of a significance as well. The reintroduction of Sam Curran, who's been very good in the games that he's played, Phil Salt, Josh Butler, Harry Brook, all these guys have done really well in certain aspects. Joe Root. I think we'll see the likes of Will Jackson and Tom Banton as well in slightly unfamiliar roles, but we know the power that they possess, and I think that gives us an option to be able to play quite a powerful white ball game. And I think for us, we've got some very good bowling options when it comes to white ball too. We just probably need to keep upskilling, particularly our seamers, keep upskilling us with various options so that in varying conditions we can be slightly more adaptable. But look, it's going to take time with the setup, but time is kind of on our side when it comes to the one-day team, because the next big event is obviously 2027, which you build towards. But when it comes to T20, I feel like we're not too far away, and we'll find out in the not too distant future how we get on. But I hope we're trending in the right way.
England head coach Brendon McCullum speaking with Sky Sports. Next up, Harmy, is the New Zealand series. 3 ODIs, 3 T20s there. I wonder what sort of squad that'll be. I mean, sure, you've got 3 series, 3 matches in both series, and they're important. But, Australia's right next door, and everybody's going to be thinking about what's happening next month, as in November. Do you think he might take guys like Pope and Crawley along in that squad? I mean, he himself said that conditions are very similar in New Zealand. I'm not sure that they're that similar actually, but I wonder what sort of squad he might take for those two series.
I would. If I was picking that squad, my 50 over team would be Crawley, Duckett, Pope, Brook, not Stokes, Smith, and then then you could pick a couple of all rounders, and then I'd have Archer for a couple of the games. I'd take Tongue because I think he's shown in the 100 he can bowl with a white ball, and I think 10 overs, 2 lots of 10 overs in competitive games would do him a world of good. Atkinson.
So you're chartering another plane, aren't you?
Yeah,
you're taking another 25 for these.
I'm basically taking my I'm picking my England Ashes team, and they're going to play in the first ODI, and probably the majority of them are playing the third ODI, apart from the England captain. And if the England captain wants a game, I give him a game. If Stokes says he needs some time in the middle and goes to New Zealand, goes to visit his family, and says he wants to play the 50 over games, I would. But I would go with Crawley, Duckett, Pope, Root, and Brook as my top 5. I'd have Smith in there. I'd have Archer playing 2 games. I'd have Tongue playing a couple of games. I'd have Atkinson playing a couple of games. And I'd have Cost playing a couple of games in the 50 over format. And then let the 20 over format players come and take over from there. That's the way I'd look at that, because I'm big on the preparation side, and I've kicked these lot before when it comes to the preparation side. I don't think the Lions game should be the only game to play. And I think this would be a nice little intro into what is going to be. And there's a break between. So if you went and played them 3 ODIs, there's a little bit of a break between that and going to Australia 4, where you get some rest time, some preparation as in planning, and then get ready to go and play against the Lions before the first test match in New Zealand, in Australia. It won't happen, but I'd be very, very tempted to, for the likes of Crawley and Pope to play in the 50 over competition.
It's time to chat to Jake Libby, Worcestershire's captain, after an absolutely thrilling One-Day Cup final victory. 3-wicket win over Hampshire at Trent Bridge. It was, of course, played in between the showers. And I must say that Hampshire, having lost the Blast final a week earlier, were very measured based on a century from Ali Orr. They seemed to be, I don't know, just my impression was that they seemed to be pretty much in control of things, Jake. And many thanks for your time, by the way. It was an absolutely thrilling finish, and we'll talk about a few aspects of it. But you needed 81 off about 6.5 overs, at which point I thought they're not going to do it. That it's not going to happen. Hampshire are going to get they're going to get one of the 2 trophies that they. But I mean, it was absolutely brilliant, and there were your runs as well. 37 off 40. You had to put up with the rain. I guess you had to be there. Gee, I'm doing all the talking. Congratulations.
Yes, well, yeah, no, thank you for having me on. I think thrilling is probably the best way to describe it. It felt like a really long day as well, I think, with all the showers and, with the forecast beforehand. I think to get the amount of cricket in we did in the end was actually, good for both teams. I thought we were going to come back on the Sunday, which wouldn't have been brilliant. But, yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic finish, an exciting day. I think, speaking to the Hampshire boys a little bit in the evening and stuff, not knowing what rain we were going to get, and with DLS and all that sort of thing, I think Ali batted really well. Ali Orr had a fantastic innings, but perhaps, they didn't quite know how to structure their innings. But, I think at the halfway stage with a 45 over game, what I got reduced to, I think we were relatively happy with the score. Having a longer chase on what was quite a slow, stoppy pitch. I felt like, we were slight favourites probably going to that seconds. And then with the DLS, reducing it down to a 27 over side game. I think it did hurt us a little bit. I'll be honest, I was a little bit surprised at the total. And I think, speaking to their boys as well, they fancy defending that as well. But yeah, there was a lot going on in that seconds. But just to get the runs, it was a fantastic day.
Yeah, Jake, was the toss crucial in knowing that as much as you probably look down, but you also look at the weather and you go, yeah, when we're chasing, with weather around chasing, it might be better off. Was that an issue with the toss? Did you feel as though you were swayed more by the weather forecast than you were in a cup final about the surface?
I think, to be honest, and I spoke to Nick as well, he said the same at the toss. I think it was pretty much 100% on the weather. The radars were, they were off in the end. We thought we were going to get a lot more than we actually did. But yeah, I mean, looking to the surface looks an absolute belter. And I've played a lot of white ball cricket at Trent Bridge, as I know you will have done as well, and usually get some absolute belters there. And it was still a good wicket, but it did hold and was a little bit on the slower side, which did catch us both off a little bit. I think, I would have probably have batted first on a good pitch, try and get runs on the board in the final. But yeah, with the weather and everything that was going around, I think, the weather did play a massive part in the decision.
We always talk about the final moments, the closing moments, don't we? And I mean, they were very, very dramatic. Matthew Waite's couple of sixes, Henry Cullen hitting his one and only ball for 4 at the end there. But a word about them, if you like, how you coped. Were you? I didn't see you on the balcony. I don't know whether you were hiding in the back of the change room. But also Ethan Brooks was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't know what to do with myself. I flitted between going inside the change room and out on the balcony. But yeah, I was a nervous wreck. I think, special mention to Ethan. I think his innings really changed the game and was rightly man of the match in the final. Yeah, I think to play the way he did and clear the ropes when we needed it to get us back up to a chance of winning. But even when he got out, I think the way Waitey come in, and he said himself he hasn't been batting brilliantly the last month or so. So to go out and hit his first ball sort of 20 yards over the rope and get 16 off 5, I think it was in the end to win us the game. And then it was rather fitting, I felt, Henry being there at the end. He's actually been fantastic for us all competition coming at the end. For a youngster in a final on Sky TV, he doesn't get any more pressure than that. We take the mick a little bit. He didn't get all of it, but he got enough of it via Kyle Abbott's head/shoulder to get it to the boundary to get the winning runs. And yeah, it was just pure elation off the back of that.
Yeah, Jake, I played in a test match. I was waiting to go in a test match, an Ashes test match, when Matthew Hogarth in extra cover drive, and the only reason it went for 4 was a Brett Lee bowled at 95 miles per hour, and that was the only reason. He just got it to the line, so it doesn't matter how it gets there. It gets there. I want to mention, somebody I got to know when I was briefly at Yorkshire, Matty Wade. I mean, getting promoted last season, I know it hasn't been the greatest season red ball cricket in the year, but he has been a steady performer over the course of the last couple of years for Worcester, like yourself and a few others. But to stand up, pressurised situation, and get your team over the line, he's been a very, very good addition since he's come from Yorkshire.
He's been brilliant, to be honest. He's probably been one of our most consistent performers since he joined. The biggest thing I love about him is he's a real competitor. Yeah. He's someone that you want on your side, and he'll step up, with bat and ball, bowl the tough overs if you want it, both at the death and through the middle. And with the bat, we know what he can do. He's done that regularly for us since he's joined. He can hit the ball a very long way. He's done that in T20 cricket. And yeah, I mean, with the bat is probably the last month or so is probably the leanest he's been. And it just sort of sums up how well he's done for us, the big stage when we needed him the most to come out and get, 16 off 5 balls and get us over the line was terrific. I know he missed his brother's wedding that day and he shot off straight after to get to it. But he's a very emotional guy and, he has been for a lot in his cricket career, as we all have. And, I think moments like that and him, being there at the end makes it extra special. And yeah, quite frankly, the guys like that you really want in your side and, to show up on big occasions like that. And yeah, I couldn't be more pleased with him.
Jake, some people have said that it's been a bittersweet season for Worcestershire, being relegated in the Championship and winning the One Day Cup. But I must say that I think it's a lot more sweet than bitter. On a subject of real bittersweetness. The fact that you won the cup with the Josh Baker Foundation on the front of your shirts, and the Worcestershire family, the legacy of young Josh. Was it as emotionally charged as it appeared from the outside? Were you always aware of that? I mean, clearly you were able to focus on the game. You won the cup, but the Josh Baker Foundation was very much part of the day, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I haven't got the words to describe how devastating news that was when we got it. It affected the squad so much. We've been through a lot over the last sort of 18 months, I guess, with it. And to have his parents there, and his parents have been brilliant over the last year. They've kept themselves around the group, come to a lot of our games and supported us really well. It was a fantastic touch by Ativo, the sponsors, to give JB33 Foundation on the front of our shirts for the competition. And look, Josh was such a popular figure in our change room for such a young lad. So he gets brought up a lot. We have been playing for him for the last year, really. And I guess at the end of it, this trophy was for him, and, to celebrate with his parents. And, there's a fantastic video. I think it might have got on Sky of both his parents, lifting the trophy. So emotional, and the whole squad behind that is crying, and coaches and family and friends. And I think just to share that brief moment with them, it's fantastic for us and them. And yeah, look, he's looking over us, and I just hope we made him proud.
Jake, I was with your chief executive stroke director of cricket yesterday. There wasn't a lot of sense talking, 2 beers in hand. It was, and he was beaming, was Ashley Giles. What's the secret been over the last few years? Because obviously what you and Manners have just talked about there with the sad the passing of Josh Baker, but you've lost a lot of players. A lot of players have left. The likes of Josh Tongue, the likes of Joe Clark went early, a lot earlier. Young Haynes. There's been a lot of good players that you produced left, but you've still got promotion into the first division. You've still gone on and won a trophy. What's the secret down there? Because something is going, very, very special for Worcester.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is my 6th season here now, and we lost a lot of senior figures over the last couple of years. I think the season we got promoted, I think we lost something like 8 players, including, Charlie Morris's, Pat Brown's, Ben Cox's, and the names you mentioned, sort of all in one foul swoop. So we kind of went into Division 1 with, quite a new squad, to be honest with you, and a lot of youngsters in new roles and stuff like that. So I think actually to stay in Division 1 last season and to perform the way we did was fantastic. I think I played at Notts beforehand and played at Worcester, and I think it's a very tight group, Worcester. They do things very differently. It is a much smaller club, maybe slightly less expectations and pressures, but at the same time, it's such a special place to be. And I think that is our, the best thing about this club. And that's why I've had so much success over the last couple of years. It's a real tight group. We all play for each other. We're such a hard-working bunch. There's not that many star players. I think, we all sort of contribute, and, to win this trophy, I guess, is just rewards for the hard work and everything we've put in over the last few years. I think, we've started to get a really good side together now. We've actually played some really competitive cricket in 4-day this year, and just haven't got on the right side of some of the results, particularly at home. That Division 1 is a really tough league to keep in. So yeah, look, I think it's a fantastic, day for the club, for the fans, for the supporters, and everyone associated with it, really.
Quiz time, Jake.
Yeah.
What's Jake Libby's List A batting average, and why are you so good at this format of the game in an era when so many players are saying they've forgotten how to play it?
Well, yeah, no, I don't know it. It's close to 60. I know that. I think some of the younger lads have been ribbing me that I'm better than Virat Kohli and some silly stuff like that. But, could Virat Kohli do it on a cold afternoon at Repton School? That's what we've been saying. But no, look, I love the 50 over format. I think the competition run alongside the 100, I think, has worked well. Obviously, the 100's a fantastic competition, and with the star players, international cricketers. And I think the 50 over has actually been really well supported everywhere we've gone, away trips, and certainly at New Road, we've had some fantastic support and playing in front of big crowds and it's really special days. I think I've seen it labelled as sort of development competition. I think I wouldn't say you've obviously lost your international players and some of the best players, but it's still a very strong competition. And played really hard with 18 clubs still trying to win that trophy. And the special day at Trent Bridge at the end of it is a fantastic reward. And luckily, we've done well in this competition over the last few years. So to get to the final and win it this year is fantastic.
There's a hell of a lot of young players, 17, 18, 19-year-old that played in the 50 over competition this year and last year and probably next year that will play for England a lot quicker because of that competition. So I think it needs, the schedule needs to be looked at. And speaking of the schedule, you've been around a bit, you've been a captain, you've got a voice in a stake in the game. What do you make of the scheduling at this minute in time? Because nobody seems to know what's going on. Even, I'm sure the players don't even know what's going on. And more worryingly, I think the ECB don't know what's going on at this moment in time for next year and potentially going forward. What would you like to see if you had a chance to, a voice towards the ECB to say what the cricket schedule should look like, marrying in, what with 4 competitions, unfortunately, that we've got?
Yeah, look, it's obviously been a very hot topic at the minute. I mean, I spoke to Ash last week about it, and as you said, we're none the wiser really as to what's going to happen next season. I think there's, the general consensus they do want slightly less cricket. I do agree with certain elements of that. Of course, I think probably have to be a little bit careful what we wish for in county championship cricket. But I think a slight reduction in days played and stuff like that probably isn't a bad thing. I think the 50 over competition, to be honest with you, as I just said, I think it works really well alongside the 100. Quite rightly so. I think the 100 should take priority, with all the finances and everything that it brings with it. And, it's a massive competition now. And I think, just looking at it, guys really want to be a part of that. And I think that's the right thing. And I, having played in the 50 over competition over the last few years, I still think that's a very strong competition. Don't get me wrong, it'd be great to see, a few more names, a few more international players, but, that's perhaps not possible at this current moment. But look, I've always been in favour of 4-day cricket. I still think that's, Test cricket, 4-day cricket, that's the pinnacle for me. And I mean, I'm a senior figure now at 32 in our change room. We've got all these youngsters coming through now and they can play all these shots. And that's kind of, inbred in them at a young age. But yeah, look, I think we have to be careful what we wish for. But it is a hectic schedule through the summer. But I'd still like to see the county championship prioritised and still trying to get these players playing Test cricket, and I think that should be the aim of whatever comes of these talks.
And finally, from me, speaking of of Championship cricket, I was there on Friday when you bowled that ball to Ollie Robinson. I was there. I was there. I was joking with Jarlo yesterday because at the time you were bowling all your non-bowlers because obviously the game was going nowhere. Manners. You've got to see this delivery. It was like Michael Vaughan to Sachin Tendulkar, and I was there then as well. And it was like, it just went beautifully. Ollie Robinson comes forward through the gate. I was like, why is he not bowling more often? And then when I knew you were coming on, I thought, right, I'm going to have you for that.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's the best ball I've ever bowled in my career. And, I've got some rep for it because I put about 2 revs on the ball. So I think Ollie Robinson can count himself very unlucky. But, that was it was an interesting day's cricket. And the reason I was bowling, unfortunately, was because we lost Brett D'Oliveira that day.
How is he anyway? Because that looked a bad one.
Yeah, I think he's got some ligament damage. I think it's quite a bad injury, to be honest, which is a real shame. I literally knew as soon as he did it, I was like, well, that's him done for Saturday. And gave quite a selection problem as well. But look, he's been brilliant for us in the 50 over competition. So to lose him at that late stage was very unlucky. And then I felt sorry for him because it's such a big day for us, really.
Jake, congratulations! It was an absolutely brilliant final. Well done for coping with it. It was a long day to watch as well as to play in, by the way. But as you said, thank goodness it was. It didn't go on to the Sunday. But congratulations, well done. Enjoy the rest of the season.
Lovely. Thanks for having me on. Cheers.
You're listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with Double Ashes winner Steve Harmison. And a reminder that the latest episode of Following On County Cricketer is out now. And here's a sneak preview of the Cricketer magazine's George Dobell praising the impact of Nottinghamshire head coach Peter Moores, who's on the verge of winning the county championship with 3 different teams.
I mean, it's 10 years ago since Peter Moores was most recently sacked by England. I thought he was a wee bit hard done by at the time, but, you can't argue that the results under him were quite poor and they did improve. But I think he would say he's carried on learning. He learned from the bad days. People will have made up their own minds about Peter Moores, I guess. But if he becomes the first man to win the championship at 3 different clubs as head coach, I think that does surely cement his legacy as one of the great coaches, whatever happened at England level. And I'm really pleased for him because I think he's obviously had some bad times, but he's to keep doing it at different clubs, very different clubs. Surely that tells you something. And it surely tells you that he's got something pretty special.
Cricketer magazine's George Dobell there, and you can listen to or watch the latest episode of Following on County Cricketer as John Norman and the Cricketer magazine's George Dobell and Nick Friend join Harmy to round up the latest county championship action. Just a quick word then, Harmy, on Peter Moores. And for that matter, Josh Tongue's match-winning fifer against Surrey, which has done as much as Peter Moores, well, in one game anyway, to give Notts their first championship title, if they get it. First title, that is, for, 10 or 12 years?
Yeah, it's been a bit for Notts. They've had a few struggles. They've recruited some players from other clubs, molded them in nicely. Josh Tongue, I'm pleased he got to play the back end of the summer because I think he's a bowler I think needs to bowl little and often to keep him fit. And he just shows the confidence of that bowler, where he had a little bit of a break in the middle of the summer, didn't he, with the England squad? Came back for the first day of the Oval Test match. It went a little bit all over the shop and he started getting a bit stick. And I put that down to the fact that he hadn't bowled competitively for a few weeks. He then finishes the Test match off well, plays well in the 100, does well in the 100 because of the confidence he got from that Test series. And then he's now looks as though he's potentially going to win the championship for Surrey. That's what I like, things like that. That's what I enjoyed doing when I went back to play for Durham, because it means something. And, a little bit different for Josh because, like we talked to Jake Libby before, Josh, he was brought up not at Notts, he was brought up, but he has an affiliation obviously with them. So the Peter Moores one, I am so pleased for him. I really am. I've got a huge amount of admiration and I've got a lot of time for Peter Moores as a person, as a coach. I mean, we had a few falling outs during his first spell in England at the start, but I had a huge amount of respect for him because the honesty he had in his assessment of me and of the team and the way he was. Circumstance dictate why I think from the first time he was in England, when he fell out with KP, and then the second time, results just didn't go his way. People will look at him and say his international career wasn't, what it should have been for the level of coaching he has. One thing I will say is, if there is a young player out there that you want to coach, that's going to make you better because he's going to make you hard, he's going to make you work harder, and he's going to spend a lot of time trying to make you the best version of yourself. I think the best coach in England has always been Peter Moores on that front, especially in the first class level. So to see him win it for the third time, if he does win it for the third time with 3 different teams, trying to work out which one was his greatest achievement, I actually think this one could be. He had a very established side at Lancashire, with like the likes of Glenn Chappell and people like that, Stephen Croft. And he had a very, very good side at Sussex. I mean, he built a great side at Sussex with Chris Adams, Rana Naveed, Mushtaq Ahmed. This one, there's a lot of youth in this one, a lot of young players, a lot of potential that were potential England players, potential Lions players, but never really fulfilled their potential in playing for England. And I think he's moulded them and grafted them into a very, very good side this season. And I don't think anybody had Notts to win the championship at the start of the season. And that's testament to Peter Moores trying to drive them on. So I'm so pleased for Peter. I've got a load of time for him. And hopefully, because I think Yeah, I think if you asked a Notts member, a few Notts members, I reckon over the course of the last few years, there might have been a few of them calling for Mike Newell and Peter Moore's head. But if you stick with somebody that works hard, tirelessly to make you better, you'll get rewarded, and Peter's going to get rewarded. Hopefully this week.
6 months ago, you and I and several thousand other people were all raising our eyebrows about the championship coming to an end in the last week of September, with so much rain around. And, the last round was very rain affected. If the championship promotion and relegation, or champions and promotion and relegation, Glamorgan and Leicestershire have been promoted. So if relegation then is decided by the rain, that would be immensely disappointing. I think Sussex and Essex with 150 points are probably safe. Aren't they? Really? Yeah. Theoretically, mathematically, they could go down. Yorkshire, I'd rather have 146 points on the board than be in Hampshire and Durham's position where they've got 142 and 140. So you can mention the fixtures, but what the scenario that fascinates me is bonus points. And this we might end up with this kind of farcical situation where we need one more wicket for another bowling bonus point, or we need another batting. We need two batting bonus points, and we've got a small gap in the weather between showers, and we need to get out there and score 100 as quickly as possible before the rain comes back. Is that how it might play out? Is that how it's played out in the past?
Yeah, I think that's how it's going to play out. I think the forecast again this week's a little bit volatile like it was last week. You've also got to throw bad light into there as well. If there is a little bit of rain around, bad light, we've seen with the cup final. I fear for Hampshire. If I'm a betting man, I'm fearing for Hampshire. Hampshire have to take Surrey on the way they've signed Washington Sundar. Liam Dawson's going to come back. They're going to take Surrey on a spinning pitch, so which would be a result pitch. But I'm not sure I'm not sure in that game the scores are going to be high. So your point about bonus points is 100% relevant, because I think that's how it's going to work out. Where you look at Durham, Yorkshire played at Headingley. I mean, Yorkshire just need a draw, so they're going to play on the flattest pitch possible, and say, right, we get 400, you get 400, and see where we get to after that. Now Durham will have to make the game then, which means Yorkshire are in a decent position, because if Durham have to take a risk to win the game, then Yorkshire are in a decent position because they don't have to force it, the issue. But if they do that, and the pitch is good, the likelihood is Durham's bonus points from batting, it's going to come down to batting bonus points. And I think on a spin-friendly surface, the way, Surrey thinking they can still win the league, you might find, and the way I feel for Hampshire is, Hampshire might only get 200, 250 against Surrey, where at Headingley it's going to be flat. And if it's flat because Yorkshire only need a draw, Durham could get 400. And then all of a sudden, if they match each other's results, Durham actually stay up with 1 point more than what Hampshire would. So I think that's where I think your point with the bonus points is huge in this. Durham go to Headingley, Surrey go to the Aegeus Bowl. Essex and Sussex for me are out of it. They're comfortably safe, I think. So Hampshire have beaten Surrey in this type of game in previous years, where they played on a spin-friendly surface. Dawson's took them on and bowled them out. The difference for me this week compared to years in the past, it's not being played at the back end of September, and the potential of playing 96 overs a day for 4 days will be, for me, largely reduced because of bad light and obviously weather around. So if it comes down to that, it could literally be, if Durham get 400 and Hampshire get bowled out cheaply in the first innings, that could be the difference between staying in the first division and getting relegated. And like we talked about a bit earlier with Jake Libby, we don't know where the championship's going next year. So this is the year not to get relegated. Because if it comes that next year, they're going to restructure English cricket, and there's not going to be as much promotion. Maybe one team go up, one team go down, whatever. This is not the year to get relegated. So there will be a huge clamour for probably Hampshire and Durham to make the run in the games that they're playing in to try and force a victory, because they're the ones who are probably the most vulnerable.
Okay, it's going to be fascinating. Let's just hope that there is meaningful cricket played between the rain, or maybe the rain even goes away. There's another story that I've been slightly obsessing about, and this involves Derbyshire's pursuit of Mohammed Abbas, and they offered him a very generous package, which includes, allegedly, purportedly, £400 per wicket. And there's a very, very long history that goes back to this wonderful game, which goes back to W.G. Grace, of players being paid for individual performances. There have been there are precedents of batsmen being paid, a pound a run or whatever it was, a guinea a run, and players being paid for runs and wickets, and it has often had a very amusingly adverse effect on the team. So suddenly this guy is playing for himself. Now, I mean, I can't see how Derbyshire would be adversely affected by Mohammed Abbas being incentivised to the tune of £400 a wicket. But if it's true, what do you think of that? And do you think you'd have run in any harder or tried any harder if you were on 400 quid a wicket?
Yeah, possibly. I think I'd have been saying to the captain when the team was 5 down, "Get me on," because I can see me getting a couple of grand here. But no, I mean, Harry Redknapp's brilliant story about that, when he signed a centre forward and the centre forward said, "I want a goal bonus." He says, "I'm not paying you 20 grand a week to miss." And I thought it was a brilliant comeback. There's a brilliant comeback. I'm paying you 20 grand to miss, so you want a goal bonus? So no. I'm not a big fan of that. I don't mind a little incentive to get 50 wickets a season, 60 wickets a season, 1,000 runs, 1,500 runs. I think that is a very, very good reward and bonus for a successful season. But to come on and get three tail enders out, 3 Tom Noddies out, and walk away with 1,200 quid, while the bloke at the other end is bowling his absolute puck out and he's getting nothing. I'm sorry. I think I'd be. Yeah. Can you imagine that? You run into bowl and you bowl at the other end with Mohammed Abbas, and you're terrorising this bloke, and he's nicked him off 3 times, and he walks off for 1,200 quid. You're like, come on, you're going to put 600 in the players' pool here. So no, I'm not a big fan of the per wicket. I'm a fan of milestone wickets. 50 wickets. We'll be 40 wickets now with the amount of cricket they play compared to what we did before in the milestone runs, but not per wicket. I mean, you'd get people never coming off the bowl. Ridiculous. I love the Harry Redknapp one. Yeah. You want a goal bonus? You pay 20 grand to miss, do you? I mean, good for you. Well done.
Just very quickly, good news for Cricket Ireland. We mentioned that they've had a very sparse summer, but they're playing a test match against New Zealand next year, and let's talk about India playing some form of white ball cricket before they come to England. When's that? In July, isn't it?
July, yeah. That'd be amazing. Yeah. That would be amazing. And let's be fair, we've been talking about that for ages. Instead of having more games against county 11s, second 11s, go play Ireland, play the Netherlands, go play Scotland. They're trying, make sure that the footprint of world cricket is getting bigger and bigger. And Ireland showed they can put a show on. I know it was chucking it down and it wasn't the best time of the year, and it was freezing cold in Malahide. Give them a chance. Go India to June, July. Give Ireland a real chance to showcase against the big boys. Yeah, they might get beat 3-0. Who cares? But it's better preparation for India, better preparation for everybody. Great for world cricket than India going playing Derbyshire second 11 in front of nobody. And that, for me, is common sense.
You've been listening to Following On with me, Neil Manthorp, along with former England fast bowler Steve Harmison. We'll be back at the same time next week, or a similar time anyway, to look back at the final round of the County Championship and ahead to the start of the Women's World Cup. But for now, this has been Following On.